Russia is launching a global recruitment of mercenaries in Southeast Asian, African, and Latin American countries. The process is being masked as cooperation with governments and security groups. Analysts also claim that Putin's strategy for defeating Ukraine, as well as confronting the collective West, is a war of attrition that has its own rules. At the Institute for the Study of War, they are convinced that Putin believes he will outlast Ukraine, but in order to stop Western aid to Ukraine, Russia is preparing for a major war against Europe. At the same time, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky states that the new mobilization in Russia may indicate a decline in the approval rating of the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin and become a reason for escalation, including the risk of escalating into a broader conflict, that is World War III. Putin himself states that the goals of the special military operation in Ukraine will be achieved and that they cannot be abandoned despite the huge losses among Russians. So what is Putin preparing for now if we look at the bigger picture? That's what we'll be analyzing together in this episode. My name is Alexei Pichi. And before we move on to the main part of the episode, I want to remind you that every day on this YouTube channel, several news and analytical segments are released so that you can stay up to date with all the news. That's why I recommend you subscribe to this YouTube channel, please leave a like and write a detailed comment. If you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so by making any donation using the links and details in the description of this video. It says there, support Alexei Pichi's channel. Choose any format that is convenient for you. I will be grateful for any support you can give. So Putin really could start World War III. A new mobilization in Russia may indicate a decline in the approval rating of the Russian dictator Vladimir Putin and could become a reason for escalation, including the risk of moving toward a broader conflict. President Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine expressed this opinion today. According to him, Putin has already started losing approval ratings, which is why he may not officially announce mobilization in Russia. Zelensky said Russian authorities were previously unwilling to spend heavily on contracts, but now do so to protect his approval rating. The head of state also expressed the opinion that in the event of mobilization, Putin may look for quick successes abroad and direct actions to places where results can be achieved quickly. Well, a short, victorious war. And then I'll quote Zelensky, "If there is mobilization, it's a challenge to Europe. He will start a big war." Why do I see such a risk? He needs to sell success. But in the war against Ukraine, he's already sold everything he could. And you see, as I said, the product is already of poor quality. He is selling lies, pretending that he can achieve something in the war against Ukraine. And where can he have quick successes? Look at the map of Europe. Zelensky also expressed the opinion that Putin is afraid of a ceasefire, because returning from a full-scale war to peace and then to a new full-scale war will not be easy for the Russian Federation. From an economic, social, and international point of view, quote, "I believe that Putin personally is afraid of a ceasefire because it will be very difficult for him to return to war after a ceasefire." Zelensky stressed that to halt escalation, pressure on Russia must increase through long-range strikes, sanctions, battlefield defense, and peace efforts. Quote, "We need more pressure on Russia. Pressure works when the war costs them more than any other option. Our long-range strikes and strong sanctions stand on the battlefield to defend ourselves, but also support peace initiatives, because it's right. All of this will work." And here, let me remind you that at the end of September, Putin signed a decree for a record draft of Russians into military service from October 1 until the end of the year. Russia plans to draft 135,000 people into the army. This is the largest fall draft for compulsory service since 2016, when 152,000 people were recruited. In addition, on September 24, deputies of the State Duma of the Russian Federation finally passed in the first reading a bill that will allow conscription-related activities to be carried out throughout the entire calendar year. Starting January 1, 2026, citizens will be conscripted for military service continuously throughout the year, instead of twice a year. Well, experts here don't completely agree with Zelensky regarding mobilization, and add that Putin may not officially announce mobilization, but he still carries it out. Build a large army for war with Europe. This Center for Countering Disinformation under the National Security and Defense Council of Ukraine stated that Russia is launching a global recruitment of mercenaries in countries of Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America. The process is being disguised as cooperation with governments and security organizations. The agency noted that the goal of the special operation is not only to replenish human resources for the war against Ukraine, but also to create parallel paramilitary channels for hybrid operations, from intelligence gathering and sabotage to political destabilization in regions where the United States traditionally has a presence. According to experts, involving citizens of countries that are economically or politically connected to Washington undermines security mechanisms and trust in allied formats. Next, I will quote a report from the Center for Countering Disinformation. Russia is embedding recruitment chains into criminal ecosystems. America, which simplifies financing and logistics, and near the United States borders, creates the risk of hotspots and forced military responses. Then, at the Center for Countering Disinformation, they gave examples of such recruitment. Recently, a scandal broke out in Kenya after an athlete was tricked into signing a contract with the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation and was eventually sent to the front, to Ukraine. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs reported multiple cases. They say that Kenyans are being recruited by deception and sent to fight against Ukraine. Meanwhile, in the Republic of South Africa, mass recruitment of women has been uncovered for factories producing strike drones in the Russian economic zone of Alabuga under the guise of legal employment. It's actually for forced labor. At the same time as the Institute for the Study of War claims Putin remains committed to his theory of victory, according to which Russia is capable of outlasting Ukraine and the West in a war of attrition. Analysts at the Institute for the Study of War have concluded that the Russian dictator truly believes in the victory of the Russian Federation over Ukraine and is waiting for its complete capitulation. Putin's strategy for defeating Ukraine, as well as in confronting the collective West, is a war of attrition, which has its own rules. A war of attrition, let me remind you, this is a battle of endurance, where it is more important who can hold out longer. The winner is not the one who advances faster, but the one who has resources, economy, and morale for a longer time. But other experts are convinced that this is nonsense, since time is no longer on Putin's side. And now, experts from the Atlantic are convinced that Putin should end the war by the end of this year or the beginning of the next. He should at least begin serious negotiations to end the war during this time, because the Russian Federation is running out of reserves that they've been using to fight all this time. It will only get worse from here. But Putin's minimum plan remains the capture of the entire Donetsk region. That's exactly why he insisted so much that Ukraine should give it to Russia. But there's a problem for the Russians here. The thing is, the map from the Russian Ministry of Defense that Vladimir Putin is looking at gives him the impression that just a little more effort and they'll be able to celebrate victory. There's barely any territory left before reaching the end of Donetsk region, just a snap and it's all taken. But that map is fake. The Russian army doesn't have such successes, and in the foreseeable future, Donbass will not be captured. Even Donald Trump understood this, who gave Putin every chance to get away with it, and now he mocks him as a paper tiger. Putin is stubborn and wants to keep fighting. But the conditions for the Russian Federation in 2026 will become noticeably worse. Russia's economy isn't growing, and its civilian sector is shrinking. Even now, Russia's oil and gas revenues are decreasing, oil refineries are burning, and European sanctions are regularly getting tougher. In 2026, even in Livonia, the military part of the economy will become smaller. This has already been officially announced. Both the civilian and military sectors will shrink, causing the entire economy to decline. An economic decline reduces budget revenues. The hole will grow and need to be closed by printing money, risking a pyramid scheme and eventual collapse. And here's a perfect indicator for you. The Russian dictator Vladimir Putin has, for the first time, acknowledged Ukraine's large-scale campaign of strikes on oil refineries amid gasoline shortages and rising prices in the occupied territories. And so in order to somehow sell the continuation of the war to Russian society. So, according to many experts, Putin might actually escalate tensions with Europe. Like, Russians, endure it, because now we're fighting against all of Europe. There's nowhere to go, we've tightened our belts, we're enduring, holding on until this ship completely sinks. The ship refers to Russia, Moscow. Call it what you want, I'll leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. That's it for now. Take care. Goodbye, everyone.